I'm Derek Irene. I've been in the real estate business for over 3 decades. I'm an entrepreneur at heart, and I'm always paying attention to real estate trends, industry innovators, and business influencers.
I'm Alan Smith. For over 25 years, I've helped buyers and sellers with their real estate needs. Join us on this podcast. Let's talk about strategies to help you play this real estate game to win.
Join us as we search out the latest trends, hot topics, red flags, and deal breakers in every episode of Market Movers.
We're rolling?
We're rolling.
Wow.
All right.
How about that?
It is the summer of 2025, Al.
It is, as the summer is slowly winding down.
Yeah, that's unfortunate, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But we're going to enjoy a couple more weeks, and then the kids are going back to school.
Yeah.
And let's talk about what's going on in the market right now.
Yeah.
I think it's important, especially for sellers. So we're going to gear this one mostly for sellers. Been a point of our conversations on almost every meeting. What do we need to do to get our sellers' homes sold?
Right.
And so we've come up with sort of a good bunch of things that we really need to talk about. And let me take you back first, Al.
Okay.
A long, long time ago in a land,
Galaxy far, far away.
in a galaxy far, far away,
Yeah.
when you listed a house, how long did it take generally? This is before the recession when the market
Right.
was kind of normal.
Mm-hmm.
Since then, I would make a case that the market has never been normal post-recession. It's either been
point.
high or a low and not much in between until now. So what was it like back then?
Well, back in the day, we would take the listing term would be 6 months, and oftentimes you'd sit down with the seller and extend the listing again for another 6 months. So it wasn't uncommon for 6 months or longer, just because of how the market dynamics worked.
Right. Yeah, and we consider ourselves lucky if we got a deal within 45 to 60 days. I mean,
Right.
that would be luck,
Sure.
right? The stars were aligned.
Yes, yeah, but you didn't certainly promise that,
Yeah,
because the market just didn't indicate that that was going to happen.
Right. And so that's back when the market was balanced. And a balanced market, again, Alan, just so everybody knows.
So the number has changed over the years. They look at how many months of on-hand inventory we have, and then based on what our selling rate is, if we didn't list another home for sale, how long would the inventory last?
Right.
And then we'd run out of houses and we're all done. So it used to be 5 months. I would say, 4 to 6 months, but somewhere in that 5-month range was considered balanced. So if houses took longer than 5 months to sell, that tended to favor the buyers because houses were moving slowly, so buyers could call some of the shots.
Right.
If houses were selling faster than that, then that tended to favor the seller because the seller didn't need to make concessions because everything was moving.
Right.
So whatever the number is, now we're seeing people use 4 as the number, maybe 3 to 4, whatever the number is. If it's below that in terms of on-hand inventory, then it's a seller's market. And if it's beyond that, if it's above that, it's a buyer's market and graduated levels.
Right. And right now we're sitting at, in some parts of the Pacific Northwest, 2 to 3 months, right?
2 to 3
Generally.
months, right.
Yeah.
It would tend to favor the seller. And
Yeah.
so it's interesting because during COVID, we saw things less than a month.
Right.
Because everything was just selling quickly.
Right.
And interest rates were artificially driven down to stimulate that, right?
Right.
When I first got in the business, I remember one of our brokers saying when interest rates hit 7%, they came down to 7%. He says, "Get ready, Al, here come the buyers."
Yeah.
Because we were used to 8 and 9, and of course, people that were buying houses back in the 80s and 90s remember them even higher than that.
Yeah.
So it's all perspective and how you see things.
I have a story like that. My first broker was running through the office one day all excited because the rates were below 10. And
Wow.
this was in the
Yeah.
early 90s.
Yeah.
Coming out of the 80s.
Yeah, so
the
we
rates.
saw, in COVID, we saw a frenzy in the real estate market that I think caught everybody off guard. We also saw really low interest rates. And so buyers got a little taste of that, and now all of a sudden rates aren't appealing because they remember the 3s.
And 6.5 is still pretty good.
Yeah, historically, if you look
Yeah.
at the last 40 years in our country, the average rate is 7 3/4.
Yeah.
We've had highs of 18 and up, and we've had lows of the, upper
Right.
2s and low 3s.
So the point of contention now is the affordability factor, because they, those
Right.
low rates just drove prices 20% a year for a couple of years here.
Right.
Across the country did the same thing. So now we have, the rates are settled down, but now we have high prices still. But what we're seeing in our marketplace right now is pretty much in some areas, Pierce County, we're slightly up in sales, but we're also way up in inventory.
Right. So for years we were crying the blues. We need more inventory. We
Yeah.
need more inventory, and now we have that.
Yeah.
And so for brokers, you have to adjust the tools in your toolkit to say, okay, now what do we do? And that's one reason why houses are taking a little longer to sell, and the buyer demand is still not really at its peak because of interest rates. But when you do get a qualified buyer, then they're kind of golden right now. If they can flip the
Correct.
switch, then they can sometimes call the shots.
Yeah.
So,
But I do want to emphasize the sky is not falling. I would tell you if it was, because that's our business.
Right.
But we're having the same kind of year as we did last year as far as sales volume.
right.
But we're just in more inventory. So how do we stand out as a seller with more inventory? So let's talk about that. It's really important right now. If you're a seller, that you really have these conversations with your broker and make sure that you're out of the gate, that you're ready to go correctly.
Yeah,
right?
it's more critical now than ever, because the thing that exists today that didn't exist 27 years ago when I got in the business is the internet.
Yeah.
The internet was kind of in its baby shoes then,
Right,
right?
right.
And you had DOS-based systems. They're very clunky, and it wasn't a great way to shop for real estate. Because remember, we're talking this is pre-Amazon, really. So we weren't used to that. Well, now every buyer starts on their keyboard.
Yeah.
And so the first thing that they're going to look at is probably the most important thing is how the house is priced.
Right. Yeah.
The pricing right now is more critical than anything, because in 15 minutes I can isolate 10 properties that I'm interested in as a buyer, and I can automatically find the one that's overpriced.
Yeah, I think most people now can quickly encapsulate what's going on in the market with a couple days worth of sleuthing, right? Getting online, checking things out. You'll know what a good deal is and what isn't a good deal. So price is obviously the number one thing we have to focus on. And sellers, here's what I implore you to do. Don't overly, heavily try to influence your broker. Just let them do their job. You always have the choice as to whether you want to price the property higher or lower. That's
Right.
you're in the driver's seat, but at least let your broker tell you based on comps in the neighborhood what your home is worth before you influence them.
Exactly. So, well, wait a minute, but I want a net
That's the
480.
Yes,
I
yeah.
need to net that because I'm moving to Vegas and I need that money for my new career. It's a card shark.
Right,
So-
right. That's what we get a lot of. I need this. Well, we all want you to get what you want, but here's what the market says. Let's get to that point with you. Again, you're always in the driver's seat.
Right. Yeah, and pricing the home correctly right out of the gate is so important, because once you start lowering your price and making adjustments to the market and the way the market's screaming at you, hey, your house is, you need to lower the price, right? Once you start that death spiral, it's all of a sudden the buyers see that too. And then they say, well, wait a minute, every 30 days they're lowering their price.
Yeah.
This is day 22. Let's wait 8 more days and see what they do. And then they're going to come in and offer low. So,
And we're seeing a lot of that right now. And I think, generally, the general public kind of feels the market about 6 months after we feel it, right? So a lot of times it's just not a lot of catching up. And the problem with that is it generally lies in the real estate broker who gave them the advice to price it a little higher than it should be, because perhaps they weren't strong enough or didn't have the heart to say, look, I'm sorry.
well, and there's a tendency in the real estate broker world to really look at active inventory and say,
Yeah.
okay, what is our competition doing out there right now? And in reality, active inventory are unsold properties.
Yeah.
Those are properties that have not found a buyer yet. And so when you weigh too heavily on those, yes, you need to know what your competition is doing, but you also need to look at things that have gone under contract and properties in the area that have actually closed.
Yeah, Bob and Sally down the street priced 200,000 more than what you want for your house. Doesn't matter.
Right.
It's what it's going to sell for.
There's an old saying, there's nothing wrong with the house that the price can't fix.
Which I love, Al.
So
That's a good one.
Yeah, pricing is, I would say,
Yeah.
number one.
So you got to hire the right real estate broker, and sometimes that means you hire somebody that isn't afraid to level with you, right?
Yeah,
And
part of what I'm paid for is to be honest
Right.
with people and to say, okay, if we go down this path, here's where the thorns lie, and if we go down this path, it's all roses and unicorns. So which path
Yeah.
do you want to hop
Yeah,
on here?
right.
We need to be honest with our clients, and as a seller, you should expect that. You should say, just level with me. Tell me what we need to do. I've got to get to Montana by the end of next month. What do I need to do to make that happen?
Yeah, and just remember, just don't try to influence that. You let the chips fall, and then you can decide. But let your broker do their job first, and and as a matter of fact, encourage them. Tell me, let the chips fall. Tell me exactly what it's looking like, and then I'll decide if I want to hold out for that miracle buyer in California that's moving up.
Right, yeah.
You know?
Well, and part of it too is the right agent. How are they going to market your home? Do they have knowledge about the local marketplace? Do they know your area?
Yeah.
Do they live in the area? I mean, they don't necessarily have to, but do they know that area? Yeah. And how are they going to market your home across all platforms? In person, to other brokers, internationally online, nationally online? Does it hit all the portals? The marketing is critical to maximize the exposure to buyers.
Absolutely, and neighborhoods are nuanced, right? So what'll sell for 500,000 right here in my neighborhood, 2 blocks down might be 700,000.
Yeah.
So you got to have somebody that knows the neighborhoods, and a lot of times, if we're going to list property from outside of the area, we have to do a lot of research
Sure.
and driving around and talking to people so we know what we're doing.
And that's okay too. I
Yeah.
mean, the research is all part of it. You have some real estate brokers that are very good at that part of
Yeah,
it. So even if I'm not familiar with a certain part of, let's say, Tacoma, I can spend time and effort to learn that part of
Yeah.
Tacoma and to analyze what's really going on. Whereas there might be somebody else out there that just kind of takes it all for granted because that's in their backyard and
Yeah.
they don't really pay attention to it anymore.
Right.
So sellers should try to make sure that their real estate broker understands what they're trying to accomplish and what their property needs as far as marketing
Yeah.
and what needs to get done.
So the next bundle of things that we want to talk about have to deal with the property itself. And just right now more than ever, you have to maximize your curb appeal.
Yes, you do.
You have to deep clean, deep clutter, and I would suggest stage your property.
Yeah, for example, picture 2 homes in the same subdivision just down the street from each other, same floor plan, same price. The one with the best landscaping wins. Almost 10 out of 10 times.
Yeah.
The curb appeal is huge. And the old saying, you never get a second chance to make a first impression, is really true about real estate. How does the home present itself
Right.
when the buyers pull in the driveway is so important. And it sets the tone. If you see a dialed-in yard and a dialed-in entrance to a home, then you automatically think, wow, this place is pretty dialed in.
Right.
But if you see a bunch of maintenance projects and you've got a junker car over here, then you think, oh, geez, what's going on inside the house too?
Right.
So
It's just human nature,
Yeah,
right? If it starts out bad, it's probably going to end up bad.
you walk in a jewelry store and you have a pristine, clean case and all sparkly diamonds over here, and the other case is covered in fingerprints and spilled coffee and everything hasn't been dusted in 3 weeks. It automatically makes it seem like everything in that case is inferior to the stuff that's shiny and sparkly. So people buy with their eyes, so make sure that your house pops curb appeal. And then inside, a lot of times too, it's kind of a bitter message, but sometimes we're the bearer of bad news that we need to depersonalize, and I hate the word declutter, I like to use the word pre-move, but sometimes it's basically decluttering. So, maybe empty the litter box once in a while, that kind of stuff I always joke about. But one of the things you can do if you're a seller and you're thinking about putting your house on the market, walk around your house without changing anything and take a picture of every room. on your phone.
That's a
And
great
then
idea.
Look at the picture on your phone, because somehow it shrinks it to 2 dimensions. And then you'll ask yourself, gosh, why do we have that bread machine in the corner?
Right,
We haven't
right.
made a loaf of bread in 3 years.
Exactly.
Why do we put the cereal boxes there? Why is the toaster out?
Yeah.
We don't make toast anymore. You'll see obvious things that can be prepackaged, pre-packed up. Take all your boxes, start stacking them in the corner of the garage, because everybody understands that's what happens when we're moving. We put
Right.
boxes in the garage to get ready. But really try to depersonalize, take out all your non-seasonal clothes out of the closets, get them all folded up and packed away. It'll make the closets look larger. And then just make sure it's clean and fresh, smells good, lots
Yeah.
of bright lights.
Yeah, I like your photo idea. It's kind of like getting the holiday photos back and seeing a picture of yours, at least for me personally, picture yourself and going, holy cow, is that me?
Right.
I need to work on that. You know what I'm
What
saying?
happened?
So,
It's
yeah.
a slow creep. that
Yeah,
causes
right,
that.
right.
Yeah.
I didn't even recognize myself, but you got to do that, and that again is where a good agent comes into play, because if you ask your agent, what should I do to get my house sold, and they have no ideas,
Right.
The red flag should go up.
And
Or if
sometimes-
they're not strong enough to say, hey, look,
Yeah, we need to
we need to
clean.
deal with this living room here.
The house smells like Marlboros. We need to maybe do something about that.
I mean, if you can find a buyer that likes Marlboros,
Well, sometimes buyers might like them more, and so they don't care, but that's a limited buyer pool. So,
Yeah.
and then sometimes your broker may say, hey, gosh, we might want to think about some staging here and
Yeah.
spruce it up, especially if the home's vacant. Vacant homes
Yeah.
oftentimes feel cold and sterile, especially as we get into the cooler months. And
Yeah.
so little things like don't disconnect your utilities, keep the water running and stuff. Keep your temperatures in the home mild so that buyers in the wintertime aren't walking into a home that's 32 degrees inside.
Right.
Because then that doesn't make them feel warm and fuzzy. Right?
yeah, I've seen that showed so many homes. I know you guys have too, where all the blinds are closed, the heat is off, it's cold as ice.
Yeah, yeah.
And it just kind of feels like a morgue,
Not- yeah,
right?
not
it's
good.
not a good warm feeling to have when you're thinking about putting your family in there.
Sure. And so sometimes staging is going to be important too. Let's get some furniture in there, make it look good, make it look appealing, and
Yeah.
kind of dress it up a little bit.
Yeah,
That goes a long way.
Right, both with the staging and the decluttering and just a presentation. That's so that people, when they walk in, can picture themselves moving in. Right?
Exactly. So they want them to say, gosh, I could see myself living here.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, we could put the TV on that wall. We could put the, little Johnny wants that room. Little
Right.
Susie wants that room. So when they start doing that, that's kind of what we're encouraging.
Mm-hmm.
We want them to emotionally move into the property. So.
Yeah, because some people are real good at picturing what the potential can be. Some people need a little help, and staging is a good way to show people this is what your home could look like with your furniture.
And-
everything fits, that sort of thing.
Exactly, and along those same lines too, necessary repairs or updates.
Yeah,
If
let's
you've-
talk about that.
If you've got holes in the wall, or you've got some creaky doors, or there's some signs of obvious maintenance, exterior paint isn't, needs to be freshened up. Paint's a great example of something that's not all that expensive. It can take a little bit of labor, but it can go a long ways towards making the home feel bright and cheery.
Right. Yeah, I know on the home renovation side, which I do some of that, paint is the number one thing. It's the transition.
Mm-hmm.
It will take, a good paint job makes all the difference.
It pops, yeah. And so take a look. There's an old saying too: the way you live in a house and the way you sell a house are two different things.
Right.
So if you've been living in your home and enjoying the orange Harley Davidson blanket on the front window, it might be time to remove that and make the home presentable. Sorry, Harley guys, I don't want to, but
you're painting a picture here: the Marlboros and the litter
Marlboros
box and the
Harleys,
Harley
there we go.
blanket.
Come on, folks, hop on back. Let's go look at some houses.
Have you been to my house?
Yeah, but if you've enjoyed expressing yourself via paint
Yeah.
in your interior of your home, it might be time to think about, okay, maybe we should just make this look classy and neutral.
Yeah,
and
it doesn't
appeal
cost
to
that much.
the most buyers.
I mean, actually, paint's real expensive, but you can get some deals on paint still.
And then if you have repairs or stuff that there's, again, man, I'm full of old sayings today. Another old saying is, you pay for repairs one of two ways. either at the time when you make the repair or later when you skipped it and you go to resell your home.
Yeah,
gonna
eventually you
cost
got to
you.
pay the piper, right?
Eventually.
Right. And
So
unless-
things like roofs and crawl space issues and stuff, those can sometimes be found out if you do a pre-inspection before putting your home on the market.
We're seeing a whole lot more of that now, and I think that is a way to stand out for a seller. I've never done that until recently. I've never advocated for that, but I see a lot more transactions coming together and staying together, right? Because of a pre-inspection, the buyer goes in knowing exactly what the trouble spots are. Now, a buyer can still have their own inspection.
Sure.
But maybe that's just reinforcement, right? It's just showing them, my inspector also identified these items, and so it looks like we're all on the same page. We have a consensus for the seller. There's no surprises.
Right.
That way they know exactly what they're faced up against, and they can do those repairs perhaps before they even put it on the market, which I think is a better idea.
They can do that. And then also, if a buyer comes in and does their own inspection and makes a bunch of requests about things, the seller's in a better position to know, are these realistic? Okay, the buyer says, I need a new roof. My inspector said it had at least 10 years left on it. So somebody's right, somebody's wrong. So you at least have a foundation here to say, okay, what might I be getting into on a home inspection?
Yeah.
And what can we possibly be looking at for repairs? Bottom
Right.
line is, if you know your home needs repairs, if you have leaky plumbing or you have a faulty light switch or things like that, have somebody fix that and get
Right.
it off the table completely so it's not an issue.
So also, we're seeing some things linger on the market. At least, that's the sort of the perception by the public. Hey, that sign's been up there for a long time. They're seeing articles in the paper that, the market is slower and that sort of thing. As we know, we talked about, the volume is still pretty much kind of on track with last year, so it's not really any slower. Just more inventory, so more things to compete against.
Right.
The things that are sitting on the market for an extended period of time, I would generally say there are a few problems. They were generally priced a little too high or maxed out price, but didn't have like all of these other things like max curb appeal. They weren't staged, so there's something missing. They're going to the competition, right? You have to be able to identify that. And that's why, this is a team effort here.
Yeah, you should know, and even in this market right now, you should have, in the first 30 days, once you're on the market, you should have at least 5 to 10 showings. And out of those 5 to 10 showings, you should have something in paper to think about with an offer. So let's break that down for a second. 5 to 10 showings in 30 days, so let's say 4 weeks. That's roughly 1 to 2 showings a week.
Right.
2.5 showings to 3 showings a
Yeah,
week, right?
yeah.
That's pretty easy to do if you're priced competitively. Now, if you're getting that kind of traction coming into your home and you aren't receiving any offers, that means you're close enough. They wanted to come see it, but they found something else that they wanted to buy more.
Right.
So that's a sign. The other sign is if you're not getting those showings, that means they're voting with their keyboard and they're not even bothering to come and look. And so that's another sign. So pricing your home goes back to the very first point we made. Is so important. But having a reasonable expectation of how long it's going to take based on what market dynamics are is also another thing that your broker should be telling you.
I was going to add to that, in the $1 million plus price ranges right now, you might be priced correctly, you might be showing well,
Right.
and it's still just going to take a while. So there's always
Very
a
price
caveat,
dependent.
right?
Exactly. That's a great point.
Yeah.
Because luxury market right now, a lot of those folks may not be driven by interest rates if they have cash, but their cash is tied up in market investments, and the market's been very volatile.
Well,
So
right now it's up though.
yeah,
But
today.
Yeah, today.
So,
Yeah.
so it all comes back to just starting off day one with your best foot forward and just blazing on all cylinders, and then also be flexible with showings.
Yeah, you see that. That's you go through all this effort, right, to put your home on the market, to clean it up, to get the curb appeal. You listened to your broker, you teamed up and made a decision on price.
Right.
But now you can only show it between 3 and 5 o'clock if the pets have a place to go.
Yeah, you never know where your best buyer is coming from, and sometimes it happens with a moment's notice, and they
Yeah.
just happen to be driving by and didn't know that your home was available. So if you can be accommodating, we use electronic software now to schedule all of our showings, so you know who's coming and going. But just being flexible, yes, it's a pain to
sure.
leave your home and
Yeah.
keep it all spiffy and smelling great and stuff, and then you're leaving, and then someone wants to come see it an hour later, so you're leaving again. But if you can accommodate those showings up front, it will be painful, but the pain won't last nearly as long.
Right, yeah,
Than
yeah.
twice a week for 6 months.
Yeah.
So you just have to throw your hat over the fence, jump into it, and just say, okay, here we go, we're selling our house.
Yeah, you got to look at it like it's your job for 90 days ish.
Yeah.
You know, my job is to get my home sold, so now here are my tasks, and I need to do those. You know,
The good news is that you can make it happen. You know, people
Yeah.
are still buying
People
and
are still
selling real
buying.
estate all
Yes.
over the place.
Yeah.
So, you know, just get everything dialed in, get all your ducks in a row, and then you're ready to go.
yeah, I think that's solid advice. You know, sellers just you know, it's I tell all my sellers the same thing. Your home is going to sell.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to get it done. It's just how we get there. You know, that is kind of that's part of the battle plan, right?
I think it's great if you're a seller right now. Look at yourself and ask yourself this question: what makes my house the one that the buyers are going to want to buy?
Right.
Of all my peer group and all the similar homes in the area that are kind of like mine, what makes my home the one they're going to want to buy?
And that's the hard part because you got to be honest with yourself and kind of step back a little bit.
Got to detach
That's where your
yourself.
pictures come.
Yep, you got to detach
know?
yourself from all the things you've done to the home that made the home unique to you,
Yeah.
and say, how is a buyer looking at all this? What's going to make my house the one they want to buy?
Yeah, and you know, ask your real honest friends. Hey, take a look at my house. Tell me what you think. You know, everyone has an opinion,
Yep.
and lots of them are valid. So
Yes.
you know, so sellers, it's a good market out there. It's not the best market. It's not the worst market, but it's a good market.
It's a
and
it's
we
a
need to
normal market.
navigate. We got to navigate it,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So you know, we're all in this together, and this is our job to help you succeed, and that's what we're here for.
Absolutely. Yep, you can get it done.
All right.